Did you start on time?
Yes,
I think so. Huh?
I think so. Just got 1 minute more to go.
How's everybody? Fine? Both Germany and Turkey and Palestine and Somalia and America, a new edition. You can come and sit over by his side, please.
تمام. يقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين إذا يعني كي نثبت أن حضرة عيسى عليه السلام لم تعرف مكانته الروحية في تلك السن المبكرة، إذ أنه في عز شبابه اشتغل كنجار وعرف بهذه الحرفة، ثم بعد ذلك لما وصل تلك السن المعروفة قد كلفه الله سبحانه وتعالى بتلك المهام الربانية الهامة.
Right. Any other question for today?
Oui.
Imam Sahib.
We have got one remaining question sent by Mahad Dabus from Egypt.
Achha, mashallah.
She sent quite a few questions together and we are presenting it.
Right.
So she says that the Holy Quran gives the instructions about the parents, and she has quoted this verse, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem, wa qaza rabbuka alla ta'budu illa iyyahu wa bil walidaini ihsana imma yablughanna indakal kibara ahaduhuma aw kilahuma fala taqul lahumā uffin wa la tanharhumā wa qul lahumā qawlan karīmā. Thy Lord has commanded that ye worship none but him, and that ye show kindness to parents. If one or both of them attain old age with thee, never say to them as much as uff, that, nor reproach them, but always address them with kindly speech. Then she says, then my question is that why did Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam say to his father and people, as quoted in the Quran in the following verse, is qala li abihi wa qawmihi ma hazihi at-tamasilu allati antum laha akifun qalu wajadna abana laha abidin, and then continue to say uffin lakum wa lima ta'buduna min dunillah afala taqilun. The translation of these verses is, when he said to his father and his people, what are these images to which you are so devoted? They replied, we found our fathers worshipping them. And woe on you on what on that which you worship instead of Allah. Can you not understand? So she says that why this word uffin lakum has been used while
She has taken this verse and the other verse out of context, because the series of the verses which she quoted before begin with a strong admonition that man should not call partners with Allah. So that is something which must not be compromised with anything else. So the word of kindness is a personal affair. You should be kind and you should tolerate all they do to you. But if it comes to God, then He is the superior, He on high, He is high. And the subject of the unity of God should not be sacrificed for the sake of anyone else. So that is where uff is permitted. That is where you should say uff. Because God is far superior in every respect, even in relation to you. God is far superior to the parents who hold a close relationship with you. What are parents? Who created them? Who sustained them? And who created the system? If it had not been created, you could not be born by anything. So one should consider the kindness to parents is mentioned, but it is not mentioned that do not have shirk of parents. But when it comes to shirk, God is very clear. And this reminds us of a tradition of the Holy Prophet, where one young boy became a Muslim, and her mother had been so kind to her, who was an idolatress, that seldom can you find such mothers who sacrifice so much for the sake of their child. He was an orphan right from the beginning, and everything which could be done by a kind mother to a child was done by that mother for the sake of this child. But then they started believing in the unity of Allah. Then he started believing in the Holy Prophet ﷺ. He was being plagued day in and day out by that mother, who used to tell him, look here, I will not forgive you the milk with which I have fed you. I will not forgive this, I will not forgive that. If you do not leave Muhammad and God, as he considers him to be alone, one God, then you will have to break all relationship with me and forget about all the kindness I have done to you throughout my life. He kept listening and he didn't say oof, but at last he burst out. And you know what he said? Oh my mother, you are very dear to me. I realize what you have done for me. But when it comes to clash with the unity of God and the Holy Prophet of God, I do not care a fig for what you have done. If you live 100 lives and die 100 lives before me, demanding the same from me, every time I'll reject you, but will never reject the truth of the Holy Prophet and the unity of God. This is what was reported to Muhammad ﷺ, this is what was so highly appreciated by everyone. This of his is essential. It's not just permitted, it is essential.
كان السؤال من الأخت مها دبوز، وقرنت آيتين من القرآن الكريم. الآية الأولى أن الله سبحانه وتعالى قد ذكر المؤمنين أن لا يتفوهوا حتى بعبارة أف بالنسبة للوالدين لما يتقدما في السن، وربطت هذه التعاليم القرآنية الواضحة الغراء بآية أخرى ذكر فيها أن حضرة إبراهيم عليه السلام قد تفوه بهذه العبارة بما يخص والده وبقية قومه الذين أصروا على شركهم وعدم توحيدهم بالله سبحانه وتعالى. يجيب حاتم المؤمنين على سؤال الأخت مها دبوس ويقول: يبدو أنها أخرجت كلا الآيتين من سياق وسباق حديثهما، ولهذا يقول حضرته أن كلمة النصيحة هذه لما تكون مبنية على علاقة شخصية بين الابن أو الابنة ووالدها أو والدتها، هذه تكون لها أبعاد أخرى. ولكن لما وحدانية الله سبحانه وتعالى تكون هي القاعدة الأساسية في محور الحديث وهي محور الحدث ذلك، فتتغير الموازين بصفة عامة. ولما الموضوع يتعلق بوحدانية الله سبحانه وتعالى لا نبالي بمشاعر زيد أو عمرو، وهذا فعلا ما حصل في حادثة حضرة إبراهيم عليه السلام. فدعونا نرى هل أن حضرة إبراهيم عليه السلام قد تفوه بلفظ أف هذا لأمور شخصية ترجع له من أرزاق دنيوية وغيرها؟ لا، هذا لم يحصل في هذه الحادثة، بل أن حضرة إبراهيم عليه السلام قد تلفظ بهذه العبارة لأنها كانت آخر وسيلة، وخصوصا أن والده أصر على شركه ورفض وحدانية الله سبحانه وتعالى. وهذا يبرز أن حضرة إبراهيم عليه السلام يضع مكانة الله سبحانه وتعالى وتوحيده فوق جميع علاقاته الدنيوية، وأكبر تلك العلاقات هي علاقة والده، وهذا فعلا يثبت صدقه وعلو مكانته. ويقول حاتم المؤمنين ويضيف ويعلق على هذه الحادثة ويذكرنا بواقعة هامة وقعت خلال حياة الرسول صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم، وذلك لشاب يتيم قد قبل دعوة الإسلام، ووالدته كانت تحبه كثيرا وخدمته بأحسن صورة، ولكن هذا الشاب كانت له مضايقات من والدته تلك، وطلبت منه في فرص متكررة أن يتراجع عن إيمانه بتوحيد الله سبحانه وتعالى وتصديق سيدنا محمد المصطفى صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم، وذكرت حتى باسم اللبن الذي أرضعته إياه أن يغادر هذه العقيدة الجديدة، وذكرته يعني جميع خدماتها وحبها وعطفها عليه. ولكن هذا الشاب يعني كنتيجة أخيرة لم يجبها على كل هذه التفاصيل، ولكن في آخر المطاف هذا يعني ابنها هذا قد أخبرها وقال: يا والدتي الكريمة، إنني أعترف بكل خدماتك هذه وتضحياتك، ولكن لما القضية تتعلق بوحدانية الله سبحانه وتعالى وصدق محمد المصطفى صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم، حتى لو تموتين أمامي 100 مرة لا أستطيع أن أتراجع على هذا الحق، ولا يعني أستطيع أن أنفاه وأرجع إلى ذلك الكفر. ويقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين: هذه النقطة هي نقطة يعني هامة جدا لما يتعلق الموضوع بوحدانية الله سبحانه وتعالى. بإمكان الشخص أن يتفوه بأف ليس للدفاع عن أموره الشخصية، ولكن لإعلاء كلمة لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله.
جزاكم الله. But she has very minutely studied these differences when she wants answers, because she herself is in a situation where she finds hard to decide between religious responsibilities and personal obligations to one's parents. That's why she's worried about these things. Please. Abdul Rahman, mashallah.
I have a question from chapter 28, verse 16.
Chapter
28, verse 16.
16. فدخل المدينة. Yes. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. This is
roaming around that Medina.
Verse number 16 from Surah Al-Qasas. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. ودخل المدينة على حين غفلة من أهلها فوجد فيها رجلين يقتتلان هذا من شيعته وهذا من عدوه فاستغاثه الذي من شيعته على الذي من عدوه فوكزه موسى فقضى عليه قال هذا من عمل الشيطان إنه عدو مضل مبين. And one day he entered the city at a time when its inhabitants were in a state of heedlessness. And he found there
how could they be murdered?
In a state of heedlessness.
Yes.
And he found therein two men fighting, one of his own party and the other of his enemies. And he
Own party?
The party is min shiyatihi, haza min shiyatihi, haza min
Own group.
group. Yes. One
That
of his
is the Israelites.
Yes. One of his own group and the other of his enemies. And he who was of his group sought his help against him who was of his enemies. So Moses struck the latter with his fist and thereby caused his death. Then Moses said, "This is of Satan's doing, and he is indeed an enemy and manifest misleader."
Huzur, how can Shaitan interfere in the action of a prophet?
Was he a prophet at that time? No? He was not a prophet. Moreover, how do you know that he referred to his own action of boxing as an Amal Shaitan? Why don't you understand it to be the accidental death of the person was Amal Shaitan? Amal Shaitan should not be referred to that Satan who incites people to do evil. In this case, it is possible that he refers to Shaitan as his own anger in which one loses control of oneself. So it was that anger of his which unintentionally had caused death of that person who belonged to the enemy. This is how I read it. And as such, I don't see any contradiction in this verse. Although I just said that he was not a prophet at that time, but even so, Shaitan, to my knowledge, never conquers those who have to become a prophet later on. So that answer was only a temporary makeshift for me. It was not a real lasting answer. The lasting answer is that I understand that ash-shaitan here is a word which refers to the human anger, which goes out of control. And that is exactly what Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has advised. That when you are angry, it is like shaitan having control of you. Have a glass of water. Allah is also mentioned. Allah is mentioned. Then have a glass of water. Now, lahol is understandable because it repels every shaitan. But glass of water does not repel shaitan. It repels shaitan only in the sense that during the anger a fire burns from within. So the similarity between that shaitan and this shaitan of nafs becomes so close. And because Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam always spoke in a manner that it fascinates people, how deep he delved into the human nature and how he looked for parables and things. So in my opinion, that water follows lahol wa la quwwata illa billah in the spiritual sense, in the sense of humans' actions, not in the spiritual sense. So Satan is said to have been made out of fire. And how that fire can be extinguished? A glass of water. Then afterwards, he admonishes you to sit down. This sit down is a telltale instruction, which positively tells you that he is talking of human Satan, human anger, and human psychic phenomenon, which is definitely influenced by your sitting down. But that Satan, which is the Satan of spreader of evil, etc., etc., that Satan has nothing to do with your sitting down. It would rather be made more aggressive if you sit down and don't fight it. So this hadith, this verse of the Quran goes with the instructions of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam perfectly well. Moses knew that it was a temporary flare of his anger which had caused all this nonsense. He never intended to murder. He intended only to separate the two and to punish an enemy who was common. A little bit, of course, but his anger overtook of him. And he burst into a flare by which he was a strong man, his box, hit him at a place where it became fatal. So all this reference to the Satan and having done something which he did not want to do is exactly as I have explained, I think. And I hope it will satisfy you. Got it? Right. So while you're talking of this, I'll just a short call.
وبعد مرور مدة ألف عام.
I have to go to my office for it to work. That's why it took longer. Assalamu alaikum. Please.
Huzur, if I'm not mistaken, Huzur has mentioned once that the journey of Hazrat Isa ﷺ to India was prophesied by the first Buddha.
That's right.
And he was a fulfillment of
Correct.
this prophecy. And as we know that Hazrat Isa ﷺ was Rasulan ila Bani Israel, how can those people be
Correct.
asked to believe in him?
Because the Bani Israel had reached ahead of him to the place where Buddhism spread. So he was still a prophet to the Bani Israel. Those Bani Israelis had accepted Buddhism. And that is why Ashoka, the great king, the great Buddhist king, has in his inscriptions, which are spread up to Kabul, Afghanistan, mentioned the Bani Israelis. And he specifically addresses them that you should do this and you do that to rectify your ways and things. So it's not contradictory at all. The Buddhists were those who were once Bani Israelis, and a Bani Israeli, to be a Bani Israeli is not a religion. It's a people who can change their religion. And to them, again, Jesus reminds of their responsibilities to God as he had addressed them earlier in Judea. So in search of the two lost tribes, he reached Kashmir. There he found them to have become Buddhists. And that is why the confusion started between the identity of Christ and the identity of Buddha. Interestingly enough, the Israelis accepted a faith which was very close to that of Jesus Christ. So while in Judea they rebelled against him, in Kashmir, those of the Israelites who had become Buddhists, they accepted him with open arms, because he had been prophesied by Buddha, as well as his teachings were so close to that of Buddha. There was no earthly reason why they should have rejected him. So they accepted him but assimilated him to Buddhism in a manner that from then on the history continues to remain confused. It can happen. For instance, Hazrat Masih Maud was primarily a Mahdi. Primarily, when I say primarily, I mean primarily, because even in the traditions you find this, that Mahdi would appear before Jesus Christ. So he had become Al-Mahdi before he became Jesus Christ. And that is exactly the order of his claims. In 1889, when he founded the Ahmadiyya Jamaat, he did not claim to be Al-Messiah. It was later on, in 1901, that he claimed to be that Messiah which was promised. 1891. Later on, in 1891, that he claimed to be that Messiah. So, how many years after?
Just 2 years. Less than 2 years.
Less than 2 years.
Yes.
89, it was March 89,
March, yes. And in
and
the beginning of 91.
that's less than 2 years. But he claimed to be that Messiah after he claimed to be Al-Mahdi. That is the point. But he is remembered as Al-Messiah, while it was a foreign title. Al-Messiah to him was a foreign title. Al-Mahdi was a title given in Islam. And it was the first title given to him, which also in time preceded the title of Al-Messiah. But now when we refer to him, we always refer to him Al-Masih al-Ma'ud. So it is not unlikely at all for the Buddhists who were once Israelites to refer to him as Buddha come again. And that is what he was. So history has got intertwined in so many ways that you have to closely study it to find the traces of different traces and recognize those different traces. Got it? Good.
كان السؤال من الأخ منير عودة قال فيه أنني إذا لم أكن مخطئا أن حضرة أمير المؤمنين قال أن بوذا الأول قد تنبأ بظهور حضرة عيسى ابن مريم عليه السلام، ويسأل الأخ ويقول كيف يكون هذا وسيدنا عيسى عليه السلام كما نعرف كان رسولا إلى بني إسرائيل.
Report me correctly. He reported of a foreign Buddha, not of Masih alayhi salatu wasalam. Buddha had prophesied that to the people of Buddha, there will come a foreign Buddha who will not belong to this land. He will come from somewhere else. And he was Al-Mitsu, whatever you refer to him as. Mithya. Messiah. In the word Al-Mithya, his being Messiah was referred, but not directly as Messiah of the Christians.
يقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين أن ما تنبأ به هذا البوذا الأول أو هو أنه سيظهر بوذا أجنبي إلى قومه، أشار إليه باسم ميتيا، وهذا هو التلفظ نراه أقرب شيء إلى تلفظ المسيح. ويقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين بني إسرائيل كما تعرفوا قد تشردوا في بقاع كثيرة من الأرض، وفي الأماكن التي وجدت فيها أيضا البوذية قد قبلوها. لذلك نرى أن أحد ملوك البوذيين الكبار وكان اسمه أشوكا، هذا ذكر أنه طلب مرارا من بني إسرائيل أن يعدلوا معاملاتهم ويحسنوا في أخلاقهم. وهكذا يؤكد حضرة أمير المؤمنين ويقول أن هؤلاء الناس من بني إسرائيل قد قبلوا البوذية واعتنقوها في تلك الظروف التاريخية وفي تلك المناطق الجغرافية أيضا. ويؤكد حضرة أمير المؤمنين ويقول أن بني إسرائيل هذه هي ليست ديانة ولكنها قومية وانتماء إلى تلك الشعوب الإسرائيلية. ثم يقول حضرة أمير المؤمنين أن حضرة عيسى عليه السلام كان قد وعد أنه سيبحث على خراف بني إسرائيل الضالة أو قبائل إسرائيل الضالة هذه، وفعلا قد قام بوعده ذلك ووصل في كشمير في خلال بحثه هذا وتطلع على هذه القبائل من بني إسرائيل التي قبلت الديانة البوذية. وهؤلاء في الحقيقة لما تعرفوا على حضرة عيسى عليه السلام تعرفوا عليه بناء على النبوءة من ذلك البوذا الأول، أي أنه ذلك الظهور لبوذا الأجنبي أو ظهور بوذا أجنبي، فقبلوا حضرة عيسى عليه السلام على أساسه أو على أساس تلك النبوءة حسب معتقداتهم الجديدة. ويؤكد حضرة ابن المؤمنين ويقول هنا نجد كثير من النقاط الغامضة في سجلات التاريخ حول هذه النقاط الهامة من قبول بني إسرائيل الذين قبلوا البوذية وأيضا قبلوا حضرة عيسى عليه السلام. ويضرب حضرة ابن المؤمنين مثال على هذا بالنسبة لحضرة الإمام المهدي والمسيح الموعود عليه السلام، ويقول أن حضرته بالدرجة الأولى قد أعلن أنه الإمام المهدي ثم أعلن أنه المسيح الموعود للأمة الإسلامية. ففي سنة 1889 لم يعلن حضرة أحمد عليه السلام أنه المسيح الموعود، ولكن أعلن ذلك قرابة بعد سنتين أي سنة 1891 أنه المسيح الموعود. إذن يقول حضرة ابن المؤمنين أن لقب المسيح هذا يبدو أنه لقبا أجنبيا، والمهدي هو اللقب الذي أعطى ضمن المصطلحات الإسلامية. فإذا وضعنا هذه النقاط في عين الاعتبار سيصبح هذه الشبهات وهذه المناطق الغامضة والنقاط الغامضة في تاريخ بني إسرائيل واضحة جدا، إذ كان هنالك ربما زلات أو تلاعب في بعض المصطلحات. ويقول حضرة ابن المؤمنين أن البوذيين هنا هم يشيرون إلى عيسى ابن مريم عليه السلام، أي ذلك الظهور الثاني لبوذا أو لذلك بوذا الأجنبي الذي وعدوا به.
Now it's a very interesting point that Buddhism as we find it today cannot be properly understood without accepting that Jesus must have come to Kashmir himself. Because from that moment in time, the history of Buddhism and the history of Christianity have got mixed up. Never before. But from that moment in time, it got so mixed up that even the Buddhists attributed virgin birth to the first Buddha. And there is a large number of Buddhists who believe that the first Buddha was born without a man, without a father participating in the course of his birth. And again, many similar things which we read in the New Testament about Jesus Christ have been attributed to the previous Buddha. This mix-up could not have happened unless Jesus had appeared among them as their Mithya, as their Mithya. So they knew him, and the people of India, while they had become Indian for a long time, they had primarily accepted Buddha. So whatever went to this Buddha, newcomer, also went to the first Buddha. That is how they got things intertwined. And if you do not believe in the coming of Jesus to India, then you can't understand why. Why two completely separate and different religions got so closely mixed up. Their teaching is mixed up, their origin is mixed up. It is because of Jesus' visit to Kashmir. Got it?
يؤكد حافظ المؤمنين على نقطة هامة أخرى ويقول أننا لا نستطيع أن نفهم البوذية بصفة عامة إذ عبر تاريخها قد تغيرت كثير من معتقداتهم ومن مصطلحاتهم أيضا. لذلك نرى أن البوذية لما امتزجت بالعقائد المسيحية تولدت عقائد جديدة، وهذه لم تكن وليدة الصدفة أو من باب الصدفة بالتحديد، ولكن كان ذلك عند ظهور حضرة المسيح الناصري عليه السلام على مسرح الأحداث. فهكذا يقول حاتم المؤمنين نرى حتى أن البوذيين أصبحوا ينسبون ولادة البوذا الأول إلى ولادة من امرأة عذراء، وهنالك معتقدات جديدة أخرى دخلت في معتقداتهم تلك تدل دلالات واضحة على امتزاج الديانة المسيحية بالعقيدة البوذية. وهذا ما يصل إليه أي باحث أي يجد يصل إلى هذه العقائد الكثيرة، وهذا الامتزاج فعلا امتزاج بين العقيدتين يبرز ويعني يفرض علينا ضرورة ظهور حضرة عيسى عليه السلام على مسرح الأحداث في تلك الظروف، وإلا لما ظهر هذا الامتزاج بين الديانتين.
Next, would you introduce yourself first and then ask a question, if any?
My name is Dr. Kaleem Malik. I'm visiting from the United States in Chicago. A question did just come to mind with a discussion with another Arab Muslim in the United States regarding one of the hadiths that relates to the latter days that describes the mosques being devoid of spiritual light, and more importantly was that fitna will come from the ulama and the word
turn to them.
And turn to them. So why today the ulama have such an influence over the masses in many different Muslim countries when the word fitna is used directly for them?
Because they're the product of the fitna of masses. You see, they are not heads which are joined to wrong bodies. The bodies are also intoxicated, and the heads which belong to those bodies are also similar, but they're worse because they lead the body to further misdoings and evils, because the relationship between head and body is exactly the same as I'm just describing. So when the body goes wrong, the head goes wrong. When the head goes wrong, the body goes wrong further. Thank you.
كان السؤال أو الملاحظة من الأخ الضيف من الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية، وقال خلال بعض تعليقاتي وحديثي مع الإخوة العرب هنالك في أمريكا كنا نتناقش حول بعض الأحاديث النبوية الشريفة، وأهمها الحديث الذي يقول أن العلماء في تلك يعني في آخر الزمان أو في ظروف معينة من تاريخ الأمة الإسلامية الفتنة ستخرج منهم وتعود إليهم مرة أخرى. ويقول هذا الأخ الكريم: لماذا نرى أن هنالك نفوذ لا بأس وسيطرة لا بأس بها من طرف هؤلاء العلماء على معظم الشعوب في الدول الإسلامية؟ ويوضح حضرة المؤمنين ويرسم صورة واضحة للجميع، ويقول أن هؤلاء العلماء في الحقيقة هذا يعني أحسن تصوير لهذا، إذ أنهم أصبحوا يمثلون رأس تلك المجتمعات التي يسيطرون عليها. فما دامت هذه المجتمعات إذا مثلناها بذلك الجسم المريض الذي فيه كثير من الأمراض والأسقام، فما بالكم بالرأس، كيف ستكون حالته وكيف ستكون صحته؟ ولكن هذه الرؤوس يبدو أن فيها أمراض أكثر بكثير من أمراض ذلك الجسم الهزيل المريض، ففي الحقيقة هم يزيدون في أمراض ذلك الجسم الهزيل والضعيف.
يا أخي الكريم وأخي الكليم.
I thought I said Kareem.
But he also happens to be Kalim.
I see.
Could do either way, you know?
Yes.
Yes, please.
I have to confirm.
Aisha has a question or no?
I have to confirm it with the lady who asked it. She asked about a verse, and it's not really clear what she means from it.
Who? Which lady?
A German lady. She asked a question, but it's not really clear what she meant with the question. So I have to ask her again.
Tell me, please.
It's in Surah 15 and verse 15 and 17.
When did she ask this question?
A while ago. I mean, not long ago.
Huh?
A few days ago.
Achha.
So these are
Did she address you or?
Yes, she asked me if I
Yes,
could
right, I
ask her.
understand. Yes.
verse number 15 to 17 from chapter Al-Hijr. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ولو فتحنا عليهم بابا من السماء فظلوا فيه يرجون لقالوا إنما سكرت أبصارنا بل نحن قوم مسحورون ولقد جعلنا في السماء بروجا وزيناها للناظرين. And even if we opened to them a gate in heaven and they kept ascending through it, they would surely say, only our eyes are dazed, rather we are a bewitched people. And we have indeed made mentions of stars in the heaven and have adorned it for beholders.
Is this the question you raised before?
No, I haven't asked it before.
You didn't
But
ask the question. Please. What do you want to ask about these verses?
no, she wanted to know what they mean, and I couldn't give her
Understand.
answer.
So please read the verses again slowly and I'll answer the question.
The
Okay.
first verse says,
Yes,
Walau.
before that,
I see.
because I want to know the context in which this is said.
Yes.
Please.
إنا نحن نزلنا الذكر وإنا له لحافظون ولقد أرسلنا من قبلك في شيع الأولين وما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون كذلك نسلكه في قلوب المجرمين لا يؤمنون به وقد خلت سنة الأولين ولو فتحنا عليهم بابا من السماء فظلوا فيه يعرجون لقالوا إنما سكرت أبصارنا بل نحن قوم مسحورون ولقد جعلنا في السماء بروجا وزيناها للناظرين وحفظناها من كل شيطان
This
رجيم.
is all very clear when you read the context. This statement begins with the first prime statement in the beginning, that we have descended this zikr upon you. We have revealed this Quran to you. So evidently from here onward the mention is to the spiritual world, not to the material world. Once you understand this, then all the verses which follow become very clear. When God claims that He has revealed the Quran to Muhammad Rasulullah, and he is responsible for guarding it, then the similarity which is created between the heaven and what happens in the heavens when people intrude, that similarity is used to express a situation which is spiritual in nature. These people who deny the truth of a prophet, who claims that something has descended upon him from on high, from Allah, they always talk in this term as if it is a physical something which they can reach a height and see, watch for themselves what's happening. Like Pharaoh did. He told his engineers to build a very tall building so that he can climb that building and see with his own eyes the God of Moses. Now, it is they who misunderstand the terminology used by religion. The prophets never claim God to be a material God. They never claim that his revelation can be heard by others while they are here on earth and nobody can hear them. So it's very stupid for the Pharaoh to think that he can rise up and see the phenomenon of revelation from there. It is the same thing which was repeated at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. People of Mecca, those who rejected him, they said it's not possible. They questioned the very authenticity of the phenomenon. In answer to this, it is said that we have revealed Az-Zikr, that is Al-Quran, and we are going to guard it against intruders. Now, neither the zikr is material and physical, nor the intruder, nor guarding refers to material interference. If it is taken as material interference, this statement also holds good as far as the Quran is concerned. Whoever will attempt to change even a letter of the Quran, he will find resistance against that, and he will never be able to succeed. That is what we have seen in real history. But also whoever would like to change the meaning of the Quran to his own liking, which is not intended by God, then God will send like shooting stars, spiritual persons will strike at him, and he will not be able to directly hear anything, or he will not be able to change anything which has been revealed. See? This is what is all mentioned in parables. And a Christian should understand parables because he is so used to them. Okay? And with that, I take leave and you start translating. Yes. As much as you can in the time, right? Somebody.